Mets baseball is almost back. Opening day is tomorrow. We have a lot to go over, including the newly released opening day roster for the Mets, as well as my own bold predictions for how the 2026 season is going to go for the New York Mets. Let's get into it. Roll the music. Hello and welcome to Mike's Mets podcast. I'm your host Mike Pashota, and I hope everyone is very excited for opening day tomorrow. I certainly am. I'm currently battling a cold, so unfortunately the stupid weather has finally taken its toll on me, and I am dealing with a little bit of cold, but I'm recording this nonetheless, so trying to get something be productive while I'm dealing with this illness. So other than that, we have a lot to go into tonight. So if you do hear me kind of stuffed up, and I might be taking some frequent breaks, so there might be some little interruptions during this video, but it is necessary to go over this with baseball beginning tonight with opening nights today between the Yankees and the Giants being played, but on Netflix. But of course, what we are really interested in is the Mets opening day tomorrow. It will be Freddie Peralta versus Paul Skeens, Mets versus Pirates. Exciting matchup, two of the best pitchers in the National League. We get to see our newly acquired ace for the first time in a Met uniform against the reigning NL Cy Young winner. And certainly this is not advantageous to the Mets. The sooner they can get Skeens out of this game, the better. We'll see how the lineup all plays out. We're really, really interested, and obviously we now have the complete roster for the Mets. So we're going to go into that now and sort of like review what the things we knew and the things we didn't know. So the most important thing we want to go over first is the pitching. And pitching staff last year certainly fell apart late in that season. Really nothing we can do about that, but I'm excited with this new look pitching staff, particularly the top two starters on the staff, which are going to be Freddie Peralta and Nolan McLean. After that, it'll be a combination of David Peterson, Clay Holmes, and Kodai Senga. And then, of course, Sean Manaea was announced that he will not be pitching in the starting rotation to start the year off. They're going to be using him in this piggyback role, which they had used him in last year. I don't really know what to really make of Manaea, other than I think this is probably the best move for him right now, because clearly his velocity hasn't really returned back yet, and they want to use him in a role that's probably going to be less risky for the Mets right now, rather than starting him and trying to get him to pitch 5 innings with this low velocity. It's probably better to have him in this like 2 or 3 inning role for the meantime. I don't really know what the situation is going to play out with Manaea. It's not good. Clearly, he is still not at 100%, even after a full off season. And obviously, he had a lot of issues with his arm last year, and not just the arm, but also the obliques, and then the loose bodies in the elbow. There's a lot of things going on with Manaea that. Sadly, we're probably not going to be seeing 100% Manaea this year either, and it'll be interesting to see the role that they're going to use Manaea in. But Manaea does make the not the rotation. They're only using a six-man rotation for now, but they're going to be using him in this sort of weird piggyback role for the meantime. After that, they have the bullpen has been announced. The only interesting addition, because we knew pretty much how this bullpen was going to play out with So I'll go over the other relievers. Devin Williams, obviously, is going to be closing. Luke Weaver and Brooks Raley are going to be the primary leading relievers that are going to be setting it up to Devin Williams. Tobias Myers is going to be used in a swingman role. So we're going to probably be seeing him in this like long relief, maybe some spot starts from him. But Myers is going to be a really interesting addition to this team, this bullpen. I'm very excited to see how he fits in. Myers is probably very underrated, and he had a really good spring, so I'm interested to see how this all plays out with Myers. Other than Myers, Huascar Brazoban, Luis Garcia are going to be making up the middle relief. And then the other left-handed pitcher that made the team was Richard Lovelady. And other than having a really weird name, Richard Lovelady did not have a great spring. He was pretty good for the most part. I think that was enough for him to get into the bullpen for now, but he's not long for the bullpen. They ultimately are waiting for AJ Minter to return back and fall back into that primary setup role that he was doing before he got hurt. So they're expecting Minter to return sometime in early May, possibly late April, but most likely we're looking at sometime in early, maybe to mid-May. And that's not great, but that's the best that really we could expect with Minter. So the bullpen, you're depending a lot on bounce back years from Devin Williams and Luke Weaver, and both these guys kind of got hosed last year. It's really a lot of it wasn't really their fault. It was mostly that they were just getting unlucky. Really bad defense behind them with the Yankees. Brooks Raley was a unit last year. Once he returned back from injury, he was probably the most dependable reliever other than Edwin Diaz. I already mentioned Myers. Luis Garcia and Huascar Brazoban are going to be explosive, I guess, probably the best adjective for them. These are guys who could be really good and also really terrible. We've seen that play out their entire careers. We've seen it play out with Brazoban last year, where he was dynamic for the first two and a half months of the season. Went so bad that they had to send him down, came back up and was actually really good for them over that final month of the year. But it's a real balancing act with Brazoban. Same thing with Garcia, who's certainly the oldest guy in this bullpen. I think he's 39, and I don't really know. I don't know if Garcia is going to be super dependable. He was solid. That's really the best way I could describe him as. But this bullpen is going to be one to watch. Particularly the late inning relievers, where they had just so much riding on Devin Williams being returning to his star status and becoming one of the best relievers in baseball again. And again, he had a run from 2021 to 2023 that made him an elite reliever. He was one of the best setup men, and then transitioned to closer really well, and was just really hurt in 2024. Ineffective in 2025, although again wasn't really his fault. But you're really betting a lot on Devin Williams being the guy who can step in and be the next Edwin Diaz here, and it's a bet that could backfire, of course. But I'm cautiously optimistic with Devin Williams, and I think this bullpen is going to be solid, if not really great. Moving on to the position players, we have the announced battery behind the plate are going to be Francisco Alvarez and Luis Torrens. No surprises there. Infielders, Brett Beatty, Bo Bichette, Francisco Lindor, Jorge Polanco, Marcus Semien, Mark Vientos, and the surprise, Jared Young making the team. And Young did not have a good spring training, but I guess it gives them enough versatility in terms of his ability to play outfield, infield. They can move him and play DH. He's a left-handed bat. Their other options weren't particularly great. It was play like Fidel Brujan. They sent down Ronnie Mauricio, so I think their expectation is that Mauricio will be brought back up at some point once he gets a little bit more time at AAA. But Mauricio, I think should have been starting with this team from the get-go, but they want him to get a little bit more time in the minors and get some more consistent playing time. He doesn't see that enough at the major league level, so that's just the way it's going to play out for now. Outfield, we were very pleased to see Carson Bench make the team. I don't really know how it's going to go with Bench. we've seen this play out with a prospect being rushed up probably too early last year with Jonah Tong. Carson Bench had a fantastic spring training. We cannot deny that Carson Bench was really, really great in spring training. He was hitting the ball, didn't really hit for power, but made contact, had a really high batting average, was ripping extra base hits, driving in runners, stealing base. He did pretty much everything that you really could have asked for him. So he had a really good spring training. They're really impressed with how advanced he is for his age. I wonder if maybe he's just not really set up to be facing major league pitching on a regular level right now. I just don't see it really working out really particularly well for Benj. Maybe I'll be surprised. Who knows? But I think we could be seeing a situation where Benj might be sent down later this season because they ultimately had to rush him up, and this isn't on the Mets. It's really more so as the bad, unfortunate circumstances with Mike Tauchman getting hurt, tearing his meniscus, and he's down for the year. So they bring up Benj now. They see what they got with Benj. They'll see how he can hold up, and hopefully it works out well for him. But at the very least, Benj gives them a really good right field arm. But I do have questions about how well his bat's going to play at the major league level at this stage in his career. Other than Benj, Luis Robert Jr., of course, will be manning center. Juan Soto in left, and Tyrone Taylor is the fourth outfielder. So good outfield group. Ultimately, they were intending to go with 5 outfielders originally, and that was probably going to be Mike Tauchman in a role before they announced that Jared Young would be the other position player brought up. But as it stands now, AJ Minter still on the IL. Other options that were being considered and were designated for assignment are Vidal Brujan, left-handed reliever. Brian Hudson was in the mix for that last bullpen slot before they went to Lovelady, and catcher Ben Wardford was also designated for assignment. So we know now what our roster is going to look like. It's going to be a good group. I'm really excited for this new era of the New York Mets starting. We certainly have seen some turbulent times with the previous group. I'm hoping that the change of scenery for some new guys coming in is enough to sort of rebalance the clubhouse, bring them a new sense of, okay, now we know what we want to do moving forward. And I'm excited for what we're going to see tomorrow. It may not be great initially. Certainly there's going to be some learning curves that we're going to have to expect here, and some growing pains that we might also have to grow to expect with some of the younger guys on this team. But I really can't wait for the season to start. So I specifically took a half day tomorrow from work so that I could work 9 to 1 tomorrow and then be ready to watch the game at home tomorrow, just so that I am ready to go. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me, just in terms of like, I could have taken a whole day of work and instead of watching this game. So I'm hoping for a good game tomorrow. Hopefully we see some quality pitching, good hitting, and a win on opening day for the New York Mets. So the intended title of this episode was going to be 10 bold predictions for the 2026 Mets. As you can see, I cut this down to 6 just because I'm not well, and speaking for too long is going to be hard. So I cut this down to my top 6 bold predictions for the 2026 Mets, and we'll go into this now. So number 1, Freddie Peralta signs a contract extension with the Mets before hitting free agency. And the trade for Peralta was the biggest news of the offseason, even more so than Bo Bichette signing with the team. Peralta being acquired gave the Mets a legitimate ace. They acquired Peralta and Tobias Myers from the Brewers at the cost of 2 of their top prospects, Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat. We've gone into that whole situation when we went into the episode about the Mets acquiring Peralta. So I'm not going to speak too much about what I already spoke about, but just to kind of give a little bit more of a summary before I go into my prediction. Peralta is in the final year of his deal, so he is going to be an unrestricted free agent following the 2026 season in the event that no extension is reached with the Mets. And with Peralta being named the Mets 2026 opening day starter, it makes an extension even more sense for the Mets to make that kind of offer to Peralta. So Peralta's numbers were absolutely fantastic last year. He's coming off a career year in 2025 where he went 17-6. He had 2.70 ERA, 204 strikeouts, finished fifth in NL Cy Young voting. Over the last couple of years, he has also silenced injury concerns by making 30 or more starts and recording 200 plus strikeouts, 3 consecutive seasons now. He is one of the best pitchers in the National League, and he's probably one of the most underrated pitchers in all of baseball. Because of where he pitched Milwaukee, probably didn't get enough attention being paid to him, and the fact that this was not a guy who really like dazzled in terms of what he did. He was just a really good overall starting pitcher, but one who kind of reached a new heights. And his detractors will kind of say last season was more of an outlier year. I beg to differ. I like to think of it as Peralta discovered something new in terms of what he was doing, which was really good. I mean, like, unquestionably, he's been one of the best pitchers from 2020 to 2024. I forgot how long he's been with the Brewers, but the last, 5 years, he's been a quality starting pitcher, but seemed to reach a new level. And part of that was the changes that he made, which was he went from being primarily fastball slider to fastball changeup slider. And the changeup was really effective for him. It's a really good changeup, has a lot of movement, and he uses it really well in combination with his fastball. Peralta does not have overwhelming velocity, but has good movement on that pitch. It tails upward. He gets a good rise on it, and he's just smart in terms of the way he uses it. This is a fastball that averages about 94, 95, but with his extension from the mound, he really knows how to work it and how to hide it. And in combination with the changeup, and his mechanics are so good, but in combination with his changeup and the slider, which are both plus pitches, he's just really effective, and he's so good at inducing weak contact. Is not really a ground ball pitcher. That's never been his MO. He's a guy who just induces weak contact with good breaking stuff, good off-speed stuff, and his ability to use that fastball as a pitch to sort of induce weak contact, flyouts, what have you. And it's just really smart, and seems to be a great leader already. He seems to have fallen into that role as the ace of the staff in New York extremely quickly. I'm really impressed with everything they're saying. Of course, there is the front office tie that Peralta has to David Stearns. Stearns, when he was working for Milwaukee, had originally signed Peralta, and this is the guy who traded for him when Peralta was this absolutely nowhere close to the major league level kid, but Stearns saw something in him, and there is obviously a connection between these two. Stearns was eyeing Peralta for some time and was trying to work out how to make a trade for Peralta if he ever got a chance to do it. He went ahead and did it, pulled the trigger, and made a trade that certainly has a lot of risk with giving up two prospects who are rated among the top 100 prospects in baseball according to MLB Pipeline, and so bringing him in is going to be really interesting. Another thing working in the Mets' favor is that the Mets also recently worked with Peralta's agents to sign Devin Williams, who is a client of. So it's Clutch Baseball is now the agency. They're originally something else, but prior to this, I think it was Rep One Baseball is what they were called before. But they've been absorbed by Clutch Sports, who have started their new division called Clutch Baseball, and their clients include Peralta, Devin Williams, also included former Met Starling Marte, Rafael Devers is probably their biggest client, and the reason I'm mentioning this is that because of the recent signing of Devin Williams, it does seem like the Mets front office has some existing ties to to Peralta's agents, and they know how to work with these guys. Crucially, they are not the type of agents that are recommending free agency for a lot of their clients. We haven't seen that too much with other guys. With Rafael Devers, a guy who seemed like he was going to go free agency, absolutely. Ultimately signed this massive extension with what was Boston at the time. Now he's been traded to the San Francisco Giants, but that was a huge move, and a lot of people assumed that Devers was going to go free agency. They ultimately recommended that Devers sign his extension, and I think this could go the same way with Peralta, who certainly is in line for a major payday. It's just a matter of working out a likely compromise that would work for both the Mets and for Peralta. The Mets really need Peralta to work. They need to have him anchor that staff. They don't have a lot of long-term options included here. Everybody else, with the exception of Nolan McLean, they're on short-term deals. McLean, at least, is going to be in the Mets organization for many years to come. But they really need a stabilizing force in there to sort of be the anchor of that staff for the next 3-4 years at least. And what Peralta is asking for here was of course, like, this was an opening gambit from Peralta and his agents in terms of trying to figure out what would be the best extension length for his contract. They said 7 to 8 years. That's absurd. I mean, this is nothing against Freddie Peralta, but no one's giving him an 8-year contract or 7-year contract. I think the Mets could probably work it down to 4 or 5 years, and the 5th year might be might be a player option situation. We'll see, but I think 4 years is certainly doable, and it's a matter of finding out what Peralta would be willing to compromise on. If he doesn't get the maximum security in terms of years, what does he get in trade here? Which is he has to get more money, and like a normal compromise here would be probably like 6 years, like 168 million or something, and it'd be like 28 million AAV. But if they want to cut it down to 4 years, it's going to be like 4 years, 35 million AAV. So I can see them doing like a 4-year, at least like 120, 150, maybe even like 150 million, depending on the amount of years that they ultimately get for him. But we've seen the way that they structure contracts out, that the Mets are very willing to give out short-term, like 3 years, 4 years, and opt-outs, anything to really kind of get the deal done. And that just is the way that Stearns prefers to operate. I know it's frustrating for some people who would prefer the Mets just sign their guy, and then they don't have to deal with this next offseason. They don't have to deal with the impending doom of like, oh no, that guy's going to leave for free agency now. Like, we don't want to deal with this every offseason. Can we just make some long-term commitments to this team? And I know it's frustrating for Met fans, but looking at market comparisons, I mean, the deals that they were recently made for Jesus Luzardo or Ranger Suarez, Tyler Glasnow, it's contract who are on the same level as Peralta, maybe a little bit less. Christopher Sanchez signing his contract recently. And so there's a lot of interesting ways that this could play out, but the risk of waiting is not good for the Mets. Obviously, we have seen how these things play out when the Mets try to let it go to free agency. The Dodgers are just going to swoop in here and just grab Peralta, and we know how that's going to play out because it's played out already. We've seen them swoop in, grab Edwin Diaz. We've seen them swoop in and grab Kyle Tucker. They cannot let Peralta go to free agency and risk the chance of him going to their number one competition for getting to the World Series. And if Peralta does hit the open market, then the contract could go really crazy, really fast because of the Dodgers' seemingly limitless money and very willingness to defer contract payments. So he could see upwards of 200 million if he's able to replicate his success from 2025. And of course, there's also the added pressure of the Mets need to make sure that they don't spend out. They didn't trade didn't trade Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat for nothing here. They cannot give up two top tier prospects for a 1 year rental. So there's major pressure to get a deal done. I think the deal absolutely can get done because I think Bronson also wants to be here. We need to see more time with him in a Met uniform and how he adjusts to playing in New York. But I think it's definitely doable for them to get a deal done and for Peralta to be a long-term option for the Mets for the next few years. So my second prediction is going to be that Francisco Alvarez is about to have the best season of his career since entering the major leagues 4 years ago. So he's entering his fourth season since being called up in 2022, and a lot's been made about Alvarez, about the fact that he hasn't really seemed to have lived up to his potential. Alvarez was at one point one of the top 10 prospects. People thought he was going to be this instant star and a likely all-star candidate. Things just haven't really worked out the way that people expected. He had a really good rookie year, but there were certainly some flaws with his approach. He struggled defensively at times, didn't really have good contact hitting skills, and really struggled in 2023, 2024. Looked like he was on the cusp of doing something, got hurt. Injuries have really played a part in terms of why it's been sort of this like start-stop nature of Alvarez's career, that it seems like he's getting going and then ultimately can't finish up what would be a really good season. 2025 got hurt again, tore the ligament in his thumb, which required surgery. It took him a while to recover from that. When he recovered, he did not hit well. It looked like his approach was really off, and his pitch framing was not good. His blocking on the plate wasn't good. They sent him down, called him back up in the second half of the season, and what we saw from Alvarez was a seemingly reborn player. From that point on in 2025, from when they brought him back up in the second half of the season, he was transformed. We saw Alvarez playing at a rate that we had never seen play. He was smoking the ball. In 2025, he posted a 54% hard hit rate, which put him at the 95th percentile in all of Major League Baseball if he qualified for enough at bats. His average exit velocity was 93 miles an hour. He is one of the best hitters in baseball in terms of making quality of contact. He also saw his plate discipline improve. His walk rate climbed to a career high 9.7% in 2025. So he really changed up what he was doing to become a more disciplined, selective hitter as opposed to the free swinger that he had been. He was starting to approach from hitting to the opposite fields, cutting off the opposite side of the plate, and really focusing on making contact as opposed to just going all out and pulling the ball and going and trying to hit for the fences every time. And that approach really worked for him. He also saw his pitch framing and ball blocking behind the plate improve a lot. His defense has gotten a lot better. He reported the spring training having lost a lot of weight, was focusing heavily on nutrition, improving his mobility and durability behind the plate, and he really thinks that this is going to be the year that he finally gets a chance to kind of show what he's been doing. And we're really excited for that. Obviously, he has made major changes to his stance. He is committed to this more upright, open stance, which has significantly improved his timing against high-velocity fastballs. And again, as I said, he has moved away from being that pure pull hitter and focusing more on the spray approach, which is really going to benefit him. Obviously, he still has amazing power skills. So this is a guy who is still 225, 230 pounds, just like it's seemingly all muscle. And he, Pete Alonso is probably the best power hitter of the last 5 years with the Mets. I think Alvarez really does give him a run for his money in terms of being just a pure power hitter, a guy who can just smoke a fastball and send it 440 feet. Alvarez and Alonso are the only people I can really think of who can do that, and so he's really has to step into this part of being the primary right-handed power hitter on this team, where they don't. It should have been Mark Vientos last year. Vientos obviously had a terrible season, and so Alvarez really has to step into that role. In the second half of the year, he was unbelievable. He was slugging over 500. His on-base percentage had improved. He was batting in the high 200s, and really, they was one of the guys that was really like carrying them during that swoon late in the year. It was him and Soto were really carrying that whole lineup, and so I really like everything that I see from him. The trick is for Alvarez to stay healthy, which he feels like he is committed to, and barring any freak injuries, which do seem to kind of happen with Alvarez a fair amount. Barring any problems like that, I can see him being a potential All-Star in 2026 because this is a guy where if he stays healthy with his power, he can be a 25 to 35 home run threat and can supply great at bats. He can, and if he continues this with this all field approach, he's not going to just be a power threat. He's going to be a total hitting threat and a guy who really is the connective tissue between that top of the lineup, which is so imposing, where you have Lindor and Soto and Bichette, and then it's a little wonky in the middle where you have Polanco and Luis Robert. They need that additional threat, particularly on the right-hand side of things, where they really need him to really step up and be that connective tissue where he can give them a little bit more of an imposing look in the middle of the lineup. So he is really and is going to have an enormously important season. This is, as I said, his fourth year in the league. After 4 years, people get really kind of people will start to look beyond you and say, okay, it's not happening with you. Alvarez is still very young. I mean, a unreported fact is the fact that Alvarez is actually younger than Nolan McLean, and that's unbelievable. That Alvarez has just been plugging away for the last few years, and is still so young. There's a lot of time for him, obviously, to continue to improve. But when you're dealing with this many inconsistencies and injuries, it's really time for you to kind of put up or shut up. He put up in the second half of 2025. He needs to carry over to 2026. If he does, he's going to have a bananas offensive season and could have major lasting effects for this team. My third prediction is that the Mets are going to finish in the top 10 in defensive run saves, DRS, and outs above average OAA in 2026. And this is, listen, defense was not good for the Mets last year. Obviously, one of their worst defenders was Pete Alonso. Alonso's been a absolute a liability for them playing at first base for this last few years. Things did not improve when they had Juan Soto playing in right field. That gave them arguably the two worst full-time players in all of baseball from a defensive point of view. That's like, it really is shocking how bad they were defensively, especially on the right side of the field. And so they've now removed Alonso. Obviously, they're now putting in an inexperienced fielder in Jorge Polanco, and the Mets are betting, David Stearns primarily, they're betting that Polanco gives them the athleticism that Alonso's been sorely lacking these last few years. That Polanco, even though he's older than Alonso, because he is a middle infielder and from that is his training, that he has more athleticism, that he can make the adjustment, that he can make the position change and take over first base and play it even better than Alonso, despite the lack of experience at the position. And so that's obviously an enormous gamble, but what we've seen in spring training is Polanco is pretty much true to that fact. I think Polanco has shown really good athleticism at first. He's gotten used to that position. However, there are still some adjustments that need to be made. He made an egregious throwing error that almost killed the pitcher who was covering first base. After he made this great diving stop, we've seen there are bits and pieces where you can find like highlights in terms of his defensive performance in spring training. they can say like, okay, like there is time for him to kind of make this adjustment, but it requires him getting enough reps at first base. And if things are going really poorly for them at first, if his defense is trending even worse than Alonso, they may need to switch off from that mode. The other one is Bo Bichette, and I feel like this is going to adjust much easier than Polanco at first base, because Bichette moving from shortstop to third base just makes more sense. It just fits for him more. His weak throwing arm isn't quite as obvious from playing it short. He has to make a short. Now it's a much shorter throw that he has to make from third base. He just has to get used to moving around out there. His lack of range, which was probably his biggest problem at shortstop, now at third base should be more easily managed, because he has a little bit more time to react at third, even though he's playing at the hot corner as opposed to shortstop. Much less defensively troublesome for someone like him to play, because he really is one of the worst shortstops in baseball. So I'm interested to see how the adjustment goes for him at third. Again, reps being taken at third are going to be important. Making good throws. Again, the weak arm should be a little bit better at third base, but there are certainly questions about them. So those are the two like major problems that are still existing for the Mets that are first and third base, and we'll see how. As time goes by, whether or not these things are getting worse or better. However, they are up the middle incredible. Behind the plate, Alvarez and Torrens are, I think, one of the best defensive batteries in all of baseball. Alvarez has improved a lot, certainly. Torrens was a Gold Glove finalist last year. The two of those guys have great throwing arms, and with Alvarez improving his pitch framing and his blocking behind the plate, to go along with Torrens' incredible throwing arm, one of the best at throwing runners out. It gives the Mets a really good defensive boost behind the plate. And then up the middle, you have Marcus Semien joining at second base. Really important. That is their biggest defensive upgrade, arguably. Moving from that rotating door to a consistent Gold Glover at second base stabilizes the double play turn. Provides a massive boost to the team's defensive run saved. So really important. And then of course you have Francisco Lindor, who's still a gold standard at shortstop. Coming off what for him was not a good year, but for anybody else would have been a solid season. So even entering 2026. And he's getting older, of course. His positioning and soft hands keep him in the 90th percentile for outs above average. So they're in really good shape still. That double play combination is going to be really fun to watch, particularly as Lindor gets healthier, recovering from the hamate bone surgery situation. Semien, despite his age, is still gives them a massive boost at second base. Still won a Gold Glove at age 35 last year, and so he'll be turning 36 later this year. Even at his age, is still one of the best defensive options that you could probably find at second base, and really, unless he gets hurt, that their defense at second base is going to drastically improve from last season, where it was this, as I said, revolving door between Jeff McNeil and Ronnie Mauricio and Brett Beatty, and we saw a lot of people taking time loose on Acuna, and they couldn't find a consistent option there. Now they have Marcus Semien, and now they have their consistent option. In center field, they've had Luis Robert Jr. This is the absolute perfect person that they could have gotten to play center field for them. He's a true center fielder, as opposed to when they were considering the idea of going after Kyle Tucker or Cody Bellinger. Neither of those guys are center fielders. So what do you do at that point? And now by adding Luis Robert Jr., who's going to replace Brandon Nimmo wasn't playing center field, but he's replacing him as an outfielder for that group. You now have Robert Jr., who should be healthy. They're hoping he's going to be healthy, and they're taking precautions to make sure that he stays healthy. The Mets are now have an outfielder with an elite sprint speed, incredible range, one of unquestionably the elite defensive center fielders in all of baseball. And that's good because they've also moved Juan Soto from right field over to left field full time, and his defensive limitations are now more hidden in the smallest part of the park, which are going to help prevent the negative DRS hits that he took in right. Soto's defense was abysmal. There's unquestionably he was one of the worst defensive right fielders maybe in the history of the Mets, and that's saying something. But and obviously his offensive contributions were able to outweigh his negative contributions, not by much, but like it was really tough to watch him in right field. Moving them left gives him much less to do. It's really good, particularly with a healthy Luis Robert Jr. in center field. Covering as much ground as he does means that Soto doesn't have to spend as much time going to his left. He can focus more on tracking fly balls in right field. His improved throwing arm should play better in left field as well. And so I'm enjoying what I see from the outfield group there. And then you have Carson Bench as well, and then you have him taking over in right field, where he has that incredible cannon arm. His ability to hold runners and rack up outfield assists is going to be a huge direct injection of the DRS. They have a real great shot here with this group of Soto in left, Luis Robert Jr. in center, Carson Bench in right, and of course Tyrone Taylor as their fourth outfield option, who's going to be taking time as well. Tyrone Taylor, also a fantastic defensive player. That outfield defense has improved dramatically, and it's going to be really crucial with this pitching staff that does a really good job of keeping balls on the ground, but also in situations where, like particularly with Freddie Peralta, who is not a ground ball pitcher, they need good defensive outfielders. Moving Brandon Nimmo out, who Nimmo was solid but was getting worse as the years progressed, and was going to be looking at time as a full-time DH most likely within the next couple of years. So having him in there is going to be important. Another attribute is the pitching is going to be much more strikeout heavy. If Kodai Senga can stay healthy, and then you have Freddie Peralta, there's a lot fewer balls that aren't being put in play. And when they are, then you have these high-end range players like Semien and Lindor and Robert Jr. Are going to be converting them into outs at a higher rate. So their defense is going to improve dramatically, as well as keep in mind that they have this really good defensive battery behind the plate. So they finished about 15th in DRS last year by swapping out those defensive liabilities, Alonso and Nimmo, and replacing them with Gold Club caliber defenders, Semien and Robert Jr., and then you have Bichette being moved over to a much more comfortable position, and then Carson Bench, his defense in right field also being a huge improvement as well. They should be jumping into the top 10 in DRS and outs above average next year. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this defense plays. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'm absolutely positive. My fourth prediction is that Brett Beatty is going to take over first base full-time for the New York Mets in 2026. Jorge Polanco, as I just said, is going to be moving over to DH later on this year, and the Mets are going to trade Mark Vientos. So this is where Polanco is probably at a certain point. They may have to kind of like cut ties with him as their primary option at first base. I'm not saying it's not a terrible idea, and I think it's okay to try it out in the early part of the year. But there's reasons why I think Polanco might play better at DH for them, and why Beatty might be a better option at first base. So Polanco was signed to this large deal. I mean, comparatively not like small to other players, but it's a good chunk of change that they are investing in Polanco, and to have him potentially play first base, which he hasn't really done that great with the transition is so far. Brett Beatty reportedly looking a lot more natural and agile at the position. It might be a better option for him to be playing at first base. He's had a little bit more experience playing in the infield, even though he has not played any time at first base before, and I feel like the adjustment might just be a little bit more natural for him. With the acquisitions of Bichette and Semien, Beatty is essentially blocked at his natural positions at third and second base. So moving to first base is really his only clear path to 500 at-bats, and they want Beatty to have more at-bats whenever possible. And you might be thinking, okay, well, why doesn't he just continue to play DH, keep Polanco at first, and that way he still gets his 500-plus at-bats? It's becoming clear that protecting Polanco should be the most important thing for them. Polanco's value really lies in his switch hitting power, but he has injury issues for his career that make him something of a risk playing any kind of full-time defensive role. And if you move him to DH, it's a better option of keeping his bat in the lineup while preserving his health for the duration of the season. Then you have Mark Vientos, who is a complete odd man out. After a really terrible 2025 season, and I'm not sugarcoating this in any way. Mark Vientos was by far the worst position player who saw consistent playing time last year. They sent him down. Like, they seemingly did everything with Vientos to sort of like try to get him to figure out what he was doing wrong. He just cannot hit breaking ball or off speed stuff. He can only hit fastballs, and that is a massive liability. He has not shown any kind of improvement. His spring training was abysmal. And arguably even worse was his performance in the World Baseball Classic playing for Team Nicaragua. He was just terrible. This was one of the worst springs that Vientos could have possibly had. He is on this team, but not for very long if he does not show any kind of improvement. And again, his improvement needs to be, you have to be able to recognize when they're going to throw breaking pitches at you. And if you're just going to strike out every time, there's really no point in keeping you on this team anymore. So Vientos obviously is out of minor league options. They can't send him down anymore. He has no real role here because he's being blocked at every kind of position. And if they had intended Vientos to take any kind of starting position, they would not have signed Jorge Polanco. So Stearns is going to be even more incentivized to trade him to a team like, I don't know, maybe the Chicago Cubs, Boston Red Sox, maybe the San Francisco Giants, who knows. But for pitching depth, or maybe something else, in it before his value drops any further, he is in a real bad situation, and it's really in the best interest of not just Vientos but also the Mets to move him out as quickly as possible, because it's not going to get better. Beatty has the more promising future at this point. Again, Beatty and Vientos came into the league at the same time as Alvarez, and as important as it is for Alvarez to really grow and leap into being a dependable option for them in his fourth year in the league, it's even more so for Vientos and for Beatty, guys who haven't had quite as much success. Not saying that Alvarez has had a lot of success, but Beatty really only had last year, and he has to kind of grow in that last year. Vientos had 2024. Took like 8 steps backwards in 2025, and so it's even more of a distressing situation with Vientos. So starting Beatty at first base and keeping Polanco, the switch hitter, gives them a little bit more of a lineup balance than keeping Vientos, who is a right-handed hitter, but with Alvarez in the lineup, you don't really need a Vientos as much, and he really struggles with facing right-handed pitching. So keeping Polanco and Beatty in there just gives them a lot more variety and availability in terms of the different options that they can present towards opposing pitchers. So I just don't really see a forward route for Vientos unless he suddenly miraculously makes massive improvements, which doesn't seem to be the case and is really unlikely. My fifth prediction is a popular one. It's one that people have definitely seen before because it's been one of the most popular picks of sports writers across the nation, is that Nolan McLean is going to win Rookie of the Year. I'm going to add on my own spin to this and say that McLean's not only going to win Rookie of the Year, but is also going to finish among the top 10 in the National League in both in strikeouts, ERA, and FIP. So he is unquestionably one of the favorites to take home Rookie of the Year. Of course, he's going to have competition from guys like Connor Griffin and maybe even Carson Bench if things go well for Carson Bench. But the case for McLean being not only the Rookie of the Year favorite but also finishing so well. Last year he posted a 30%, there's 30.3%, let's just say 30% strikeout rate. And again, it was just 8 starts, 48 innings pitched, but he struck out 57 batters. If he pitches, let's say 160 innings at that pace, he's going to be in the realm of about 190 to 200 strikeouts. If he finishes with about 200 Ks, it'll put him in the top 10 in the National League, most likely in strikeouts. So I definitely think that's a very viable option. McLean's stuff is just it is wipeout stuff. And hitters are oftentimes just like completely bamboozled, trying to catch the sweeper, trying to do anything with the curveball, and then you throw in the sinker that he has, which is so good at inducing weak contacts and on the ground and ground balls. He is just an incredible pitcher. So I definitely think he can be one of the top 10 pitchers in baseball in terms of strikeouts. He is really effective at limiting base runners as well, as I said, with the sinker baller. But the curveball is just an elite option with these like 3,200 RPMs that induces a lot of strikeouts as well. It's a matter of getting him to kind of consistently use this pitch to induce strikeouts. But the more time he has to sort of practice this and work with it at the major league level, he's going to be one of the best in baseball in terms of FIP. He's just really good at getting guys to either strike out or pop out or ground out. And the ground ball safety net is a unbelievably elite. His 60% ground ball rate would have been one of the best in baseball if he qualified. So by keeping the ball on the ground, he significantly lowers his ERA. It's going to limit home runs. Home runs have been a problem for McLean, but he's not really getting burned on the sinker as much as he's getting burned on his breaking stuff. So again, he just has to continue to work on improving that breaking stuff's location, and when he does, he's going to really grow and become one of the best pitchers in baseball. So getting him pitching at full time at the major league level, we're going to see a guy go from a top tier prospect to a top tier pitcher in a very short amount of time. I think ERA wise, there's no way he matches his ERA from last year. It was a ridiculously low amount, 2.06. But his FIP was 2.97 to it, so he's within a run of basically everything that he's doing. So if he finishes with like a 2.5 ERA, his FIP should be really not much higher than like 3.4 or something like that. And then his strikeout rate was 10.7 last year. I would put that as, even if they go to a reduced rotation, and of course they have to reduce, they may have to cap his innings. So let's assume that he's going to pitch like 26 or 27 starts, and they may want to keep him to about 160 innings in total for his rookie year. So again, these are things that might factor into limiting his ERA and FIP, but it makes it a little bit hard for him to stay in the top 10 for accumulated strikeouts. But if everything kind of plays out the way it seems like it's going to be playing out for McLean, which is that he's headed towards an incredibly dominant first full season in the major leagues, we're going to see a guy who not only is a Rookie of the Year favorite, but also could emerge into a Cy Young candidate. I'm not saying he's going to win the Cy Young this year, and I'm not saying he's going to finish in the top 3 finalists for the Cy Young, but putting it out there, like him and Peralta at the top of their rotation gives them a 1-2 punch that could be one of the best in baseball. Might be the best in the division, depending on how the Phillies' health plays out. So my final prediction is going to be Juan Soto hits 40-plus home runs again, steals 30-plus stolen bases again, reaches 100-plus walks again, and wins MVP for the first time, thanks to him playing superior defense in left field and the Mets reaching the postseason. So this is obviously probably the most bold prediction that I'm going to throw out there, because to dethrone Shohei Ohtani from winning MVP, it takes a lot. It's not just the offensive performance that you have to try and match, but you also have to try and match the fact that Ohtani can do the one thing that nobody else in baseball can do. He can also pitch, and he can pitch well. That said, voter fatigue is a thing that actually does happen. We've seen it play out where voters, after a certain amount of time, will just be like, we're tired of voting on Ohtani. And if there's a narrative that they can get behind, such as Soto again reaching historic heights in terms of his from a statistical point of view. I mean, what Soto did last year was unprecedented. He'd only been done once before, and that was by Barry Bonds, to hit 40-plus home runs, steal 30 stolen bases, and also reach 100-plus walks. It is an incredible performance, and Soto's power numbers are getting even better. I think he does surpass his 43 home runs last year. Keep in mind, Soto, with the 43 home runs, which was a career high for him, he did not hit that many home runs in April or May. Everything that he hit was after June, and from that point on, he was out of control. He was homering like crazy. So if you throw out like last year, where he had that sort of like difficulty, sort of integrating himself into the lineup and figuring out how he was supposed to be playing, and playing on a new team again, and everything like that. It took him like a solid 2 months to sort of really find his groove. He's not going to have that problem now. We saw that in the World Baseball Classic, like that he was in midseason form seemingly already. The way that he was just hitting balls left and right, homering, digging out for extra bases. It was a really amazing performance at the World Baseball Classic, and it does seem that Soto should start in 2026 at a much faster rate than he did in 2025. So throw out the first 2 months where he was struggling, and let's say he continues those power numbers from last year. He could finish in the high 40s of home runs. I know some people are throwing out 50 home runs as a possibility for Soto. I'm going to kind of hedge my bets here and say it's going to be somewhere between 45 and 50 home runs. But it's a very doable figure for Soto, who has the ability to just spray the ball to all fields. He's not a pull hitter. He's a guy who can hits at the dead center, opposite field, wherever you might have here. I mean, he is such an imposing offensive player. And then you throw in the fact that he has added this other dimension to his game, where all of a sudden he went from this conservative base runner into becoming a base stealing threat. And they no longer have Antoine Richardson as their first base coach, but ultimately it was that really wasn't the deciding factor for Soto. It was the fact that he had taken his ability to read pitches or read pitchers and used that to figure out when pitchers were going to be throwing their breaking ball stuff. And even though he does not have good sprint speed, he was able to kind of use that ability to figure out what pitchers were going to be throwing, and use that to steal a career high 38 bases in 2025. So he's not built for raw sprint speed, but his success was built on his ability to get good jumps and situational awareness. So getting to 30 steals is very realistic. I think also Soto's very aware of statistical feats that he might be doing. He was really interested in trying to get to 40 stolen bases. He wanted 40-40 last year. His aggressiveness seemed to dictate that, because he was stealing bases left and right. He was going for second. He was going for thirds at times. He was, in some situations, was running them out of games. And it wasn't really a great look for him last year for him to be doing that. But I definitely think if it comes down to him having a chance to get to 30-30 and coming down to the last game of the year, and he's at 29 stolen bases, he's going to get the 30 stolen bases. He will get that with his aggressive mindset. And then the biggest thing that he's been criticized for over the last 4 or 5 years has been his defensive limitations. And now Ohtani doesn't play defense at all. But he pitches. So factor in the fact that he is moving from right field to left field. This is going to minimize his defensive lapses. Left field at Citi Field is generally considered less demanding than right field. He recorded 10 outfield assists in 2025. His arm remains a legitimate weapon. Again, moving to left field should help him improve his outs above average, and he can really silence the critics who claim his glove is what holds back his overall value. And the fact that they're well, he's not Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is a good defensive player. Juan Soto isn't. If you move Juan Soto into left field, and it gives him a much more advantageous situation for him to play well. Defensively there, his arm should play well, everything should go much better for him. And if this team can actually get to the postseason, and maybe not even just get to the postseason, but also win 90 plus games, which is a very realistic possibility with this group, that narrative might be enough to send him there, even with what Ohtani is probably going to do in 2026. And all indications are that Ohtani is not slowing down remotely. But if there is enough of a push from Soto, from not just and that this team can also make the postseason, it might be just enough to get him over the hump, and for sports writers to say, okay, like we might actually give more votes to Soto this year, and if enough of that happens for them, and let's say Ohtani over the course of a full season, which he has not pitched in a long time, let's say his pitching gets a lot worse, and all of a sudden he's looking more like the one dimension, as looking more like a just an offense player, as opposed to a guy who has the switchability of moving between offense and pitching. If you throw that in, plus improved defense from Soto, there's a lot of narrative requirements here that Soto's fulfilling that might be enough to get him over the hump. It's a real long shot here. I'm not saying that it's a realistic possibility, but if I was gonna say in terms of percentages what the chances of this happening are, maybe 30%, but as time goes by, we'll see how that goes. And like by the end of this year, it could be a really interesting MVP race between Soto and Ohtani and whoever else might be involved in this. Maybe Ronald Acuna, maybe Alex Bregman, who knows? But it could be really interesting to see those two guys battling it out late in the year, especially if the Dodgers and Mets are trying to get to the postseason as well. And if these two guys are the driving forces for their teams, and it comes down to Soto and Ohtani, I think there's a real shot with Soto that maybe he has a chance to dethrone Ohtani. We'll see how it goes. I'm very excited for 2026 to begin. Obviously, it's been a long, crazy offseason, but I can't wait to see this team finally sort of take all of the criticism that they got over the offseason, take all of the intrigue over how they were going to switch out all these players and bring in a whole new group of players. And there's obviously some skepticism about a whole new group like this being brought in and how they're all gonna integrate. But I do think with all the talent that they have and this new pitching group, all the negative influences that they think they've purged from their team, it all seems to be heading towards what could be one of the best seasons in the history of the franchise. So I'm hoping for a great year. This is not an official prediction, but I do think 90 games won is a real possibility for this team, and hopefully we see that come true. So hope everyone has a wonderful day, a wonderful night, enjoys everything that's coming tomorrow, and let's hope for a winner tomorrow for opening day for the New York Mets.